while I get out of the tub. I'll have to put on some things." Young Perkins' curiosity urges himself to take a gander, just a peek, however so brief, at the young widow. As she exits the bathroom, he can imagine the bath towel wrapped around her exquisite body. Moreover, he can imagine her completely nude, soaked to the bone, her honey-brown skin glistening with a seductive coating of soapy water. The frothy suds barely cover her ample frame, as she, like Venus rising, pulls the plug. The sound of rushing water echoes through the bathroom. The bathtub begins to drain. "Stay in the kitchen, little man," she warns. "I'm not decent." The widow then exits the bathroom and rushes into the confines of her bedroom. Her dresser drawer is heard to open as she hums a little ditty. Exiting the door, she enters the hallway, clad in a sheer nightgown, greeting the young man with a kiss on the cheek. "How is your grandma?" "Oh, she's okay," he replies with a slight groan, rubbing his stomach. The widow gives a little chuckle. That Bessie May has a way of feeding a body. Gazing at the young man's stomach. "Poor boy. That Bessie May doesn't feel like you've not been fed unless she puts some kind of fattening pork in the pot. That's why she's so heavy. She got a habit of feeding a body too. Almost bursting. I see by your belly you stayed for dinner. How about that no-good Silas? Was he there?" Her inquiries are met with silence by the young man, whose eyes have become fixed in a hypnotic gaze. The young widow's moist nipples bleed through the sheer fabric of her nightgown. For an adolescent, such as young Perkins, the sight is more than a feast. The glow of the lights in the bathroom behind reveals all. Young Perkins remembers westerns where a pale-complected white woman sits immersed in the frothy suds of a bathtub. She is suddenly surprised by a desperado. That always seems to be the predictable scenario in every all-white B-movie western. However, to young Perkins, the pale white flesh of a Caucasian held no comparison to the dark velvety beauty of a black woman. The widow's brown skin emitted a glow like warm caramel. It possessed a certain sheen, like that of molten copper. Oh, Silas. The young man's mind strains to recall the question. "Silas?" "Yes, Silas," replies the widow. "He didn't cause any trouble, did he?" Young Perkins' mind contains no thought of Silas. For a brief moment he couldn't recall who exactly his Uncle Silas was. "Oh, Silas?" punishing his head with the smack of his hand. Oh no, he was no trouble at all. Miss Hazel emits a little chuckle as she realizes where the young man's eyes are fixed. "Oh my," she says with embarrassment, "let me put on my house coat." "Don't mind me, ma'am," he replies, his eyes glutted. The young man smiles with pleasure as the widow exits the hall and enters her bedroom. She reemerges with a thick flannel house coat. "There, that's better," she says with a smile. "No, it ain't," young Perkins thinks to himself. "I liked you better just the way you were. You just sit right down while I run the tub for your bath. You gotta look good tomorrow for your baptism." The widow washes the tub clean and again runs a fresh tub of water for young Perkins. After a time, she calls the young man to the tub. "There you go, little man. I put in some bubble bath. I think you'll like it." Young Perkins enters the bathroom where he sees a mound of suds. "Is all that water for me?" "Why, sure it is," the widow answers, amused at the young man's ignorance. The young man casts a quizzical gaze at the unfamiliar sight of soap suds. The tub is overflowing with bubbles, both large and small. A bubble bath is something quite alien to the young man. He timidly, tentatively presents a single toe. At the tickling touch of the bubbles, young Perkins yanks his foot from the tub. The bubbles tickle his toes as he admits a little squeak. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" inquires the widow with concern. "No, ma'am. I just ain't never seen nothing like that," voices young Perkins with the ignorance of a country boy. "Go ahead on," she says. "It won't hurt." Whereupon the young man immerses his foot ankles and whole body into the warming pleasure of a bubble bath. This is nice, he thinks to himself. When he was back home, he had to rush. Back there, a bath was something of a chore, something to be rushed through. Young Perkins remembers hastily scrubbing his body clean before the water cooled, where now he felt like a king, a potentate. He could take his time amid the warmth and pleasurable luxury of a bubble bath. A scented bath, in fact. Young Perkins, every muscle relaxed. Reclining there in the steaming, relaxing heat of the tub, he experienced a soothing sensuality that hadn't been felt by any young colored boy of his age or his class. The pleasant odor of the bath salts added to the experience. The young man's eyes slowly closed as he drifted into a kind of twilight zone, a realm as vast as space and timeless as infinity. The warmth of the tub seemed to lift him from his body. Hovering above himself, he basked in the glow of nirvana, fearing nothing, desiring nothing. He was at peace, a peace that surpasses all understanding. After what seemed an eternity, the pleasant voice of the young widow called him back. "Little man, are you about finished? My, it's been a long time." Young Perkins' eyes slowly opened. The young widow impatiently informs him that he's been in the tub for nearly 1 hour. "It's nearly midnight," she says. It is only then that young Perkins realized that the warmth of the bathtub had dissipated. He found himself laying in a tub, the water of which had become quite tepid. "I'm sorry, Miss Hazel. I must have went to sleep." Whereupon the widow laughingly exclaims, "Little man, you don't have to apologize to me. I fall asleep in the tub all the time. I always say, there is absolutely nothing like a long hot bath to help a body to forget their sorrows. Come on now, it's past your bedtime. You see the towel on the towel rack?" "Yes, ma'am," he replies. "Well, you just dry yourself off. I washed your PJs. They're laying on the bed. You're a big boy now. I suspect you don't need an old woman like me to tuck you in." "Thank you, ma'am," young Perkins lazily responds. His strength drained from the heat of the tub, he dries himself with the towel. While standing in front of the doorway of his bedroom, he is reminded of his audience. A disconcerting feeling causes him to stand in place. With his hand, he cautiously pushes the door open. He is met by the gaze of hundreds of eyes. Lord God, not another night in this room. The young man agonizes over his predicament. Taking a deep breath, he puts on a bold face and greets the porcelain figures with a smile and a hearty, "Good evening, girls. How's everything going?" Entering the room, he begins putting on his pajamas, all the while eyeing the figures who blankly stare back. After hastily donning his pajamas, he dives into bed, pulling the cover up to the bridge of his nose. Young Perkins nervously begins chuckling. His seemingly expression of humor is not formed from the comedic, but from fright. "Now remember, when I'm asleep, I want you to keep an eye on things, huh?" With the rise of the moon, so closes young Perkins' day. The warmth of the bath has an opiate affect. The lids of drowsy eyes slowly close as gently flowing waves of blissful sleep dreamily lulls him to rest.